The decision to travel to Varkolak was not made lightly. I took time to prepare, gathering everything I might need for the journey and the battle that lay ahead. James, always up for an adventure, insisted on coming with me. "You're not going alone," he said firmly. "Besides, I got you into this mess." I was grateful for his support. We booked our flights and made our way to Romania, the heart of the Carpathians. The journey to Varkolak was arduous, requiring us to navigate winding mountain roads and dense forests. The village seemed almost reluctant to be found, as if the land itself conspired to keep its secrets hidden. When we finally arrived, Varkolak was exactly as described in the manuscript. Quaint cottages with thatched roofs, cobblestone streets, and an oppressive, eerie atmosphere that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. The villagers watched us with wary eyes, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and fear. We checked into the only inn in the village, a small, dimly lit place run by an elderly woman named Maria. Her eyes widened when she saw the manuscript in my hands. "You should not have come," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The curse is real. You have brought danger upon us all. We need to know how to stop it," I replied, showing her the notes I had found. "We believe Alara's curse can be broken." Maria shook her head. "Many have tried, but none have succeeded. The curse is strong and the beast is relentless." "Please," James interjected. "Any information you have could help us." After a long silence, Maria relented. She led us to a small, dusty room at the back of the inn, filled with old books and artifacts. "This is all that remains of our history," she said. "The answers you seek may be here." We spent hours combing through the texts, piecing together fragments of information about Alara and the curse. According to the village's lore, Alara's curse could only be broken by a descendant of her bloodline, using a specific ritual that involved a silver dagger and a special incantation. "The bloodline," James muttered. "How do we find a descendant?" "Alara had a sister," Maria revealed. "Her lineage continues, but they are scattered. You must find one of her descendants and bring them here for the ritual." With a renewed sense of purpose, we set out to trace Alara's bloodline. It was a daunting task, but we had little choice. Our research led us to a small town several miles away, where we found an old woman named Anka who claimed to be a distant relative of Ilara. Anka was initially skeptical, but when we showed her the manuscript and explained the situation, she agreed to help. "I have felt the presence of the curse my entire life," she said. "If there is a chance to end it, I will do whatever it takes." We returned to Varkolak with Ansia, arriving just before the next full moon. The villagers watched us with a mix of hope and fear, their survival hanging in the balance. Maria helped us prepare for the ritual, gathering the necessary ingredients, and setting up the ceremonial space in the heart of the forest where Alara had been attacked centuries ago. As night fell and the full moon rose, the air grew thick with tension. We stood around the ceremonial circle, the silver dagger gleaming in the moonlight. Anka began to recite the incantation, her voice strong and steady despite the fear in her eyes. The growling started again, low and menacing, echoing through the trees. The beast emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. It lunged at us, but we stood our ground. As the incantation reached its climax, Anka stepped forward, holding the silver dagger. "Ilara, your curse ends tonight," she declared, plunging the dagger into the beast's heart. The creature let out a deafening howl, thrashing violently before collapsing to the ground. For a moment, everything was still. Then the beast's body began to change, shrinking and transforming back into the form of a young woman. It was Alara, her face peaceful in death. The villagers emerged from their homes, their expressions a mix of relief and awe. The curse was broken. Varkolak was free. In the days that followed, the village began to heal. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of hope and renewal. Maria thanked us profusely, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You have given us a new beginning," she said. "We will never forget what you have done." As James and I prepared to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The manuscript, once a source of terror, had led us to uncover a truth that had haunted Varkolak for centuries. The curse was real, but so was the power to break it. We left Varkolak behind, carrying with us the knowledge that even the darkest curses can be overcome with courage, determination, and a little bit of faith. And though the journey had been harrowing, it had also been a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. And as we boarded our plane back home, I glanced at the manuscript one last time, feeling a strange mix of relief and nostalgia. The beast was gone, but the story would live on, a reminder of the thin line between legend and reality. and the extraordinary power of belief. As the plane touched down and we disembarked, the sense of closure lingered, but so did an unsettling feeling that the story wasn't completely over. James and I parted ways, promising to stay in touch and share any strange occurrences that might crop up. Life seemed to return to normal, yet something in the back of my mind kept nagging at me, as if the shadows of Varkolak had followed us back. Weeks passed without incident. My days resumed their mundane routine, but the manuscript, now safely stored in my study, still called to me. I found myself drawn to it, reading and rereading the pages, almost as if seeking reassurance that the curse was truly broken. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, the familiar growl returned. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. My heart skipped a beat, and I immediately reached for the manuscript. Flipping through the pages, I noticed something that I hadn't seen before. More of the faint, handwritten notes in the margins. Curse linked to more than just Alara. Roots run deeper. Beware the shadows. A chill ran down my spine. How had I missed this? The notes suggested that Alara's curse was just part of a larger, more complex web. Determined to get to the bottom of it, I called James and filled him in. "Are you sure?" he asked, the skepticism clear in his voice. "Positive. There's something we're missing, and it might be bigger than we thought." James agreed to meet up the following weekend, and together we pored over the manuscript once more. The notes hinted at an ancient malevolent force that predated Alara's curse, something deeply rooted in the land itself. We decided to consult an expert on local folklore and curses. Dr. Ionescu was a professor at a nearby university, specializing in Eastern European mythology. When we presented the manuscript and shared our story, his eyes widened with recognition. "I've heard of Varkolak," he said slowly. "The village is legendary among scholars, but most believe it's merely a myth. If what you're saying is true, then we might be dealing with something far more sinister than a simple werewolf curse." He explained that many ancient curses were tied to powerful entities, dark spirits or demons that could possess and manipulate humans. These entities often required elaborate rituals and sacrifices to be appeased or banished. Alara's curse might have been a manifestation of one such entity's power. "Is there any way to find out more?" I asked, feeling the weight of our discovery. "There are texts," Dr. Ionescu said. "Old, rare texts that might shed light on this. I have some contacts who could help us track them down." The search for these texts took us to various libraries, private collections, and obscure bookshops. We encountered many dead ends and skeptical looks, but eventually we found what we were looking for, a dusty leather-bound tome titled Daemonium Carpathia. The book detailed the history of an ancient malevolent spirit known as Moroi. According to the text, Moroi was a demon that thrived on fear and bloodshed, often manifesting through curses and possessions. It was said that the only way to banish Moroi was through a ritual involving a descendant of the cursed lineage, much like the one we had performed, but with additional, more specific steps. "Moroi," James muttered, flipping through the pages. So Alara's curse was just a symptom of a bigger problem. We returned to Varkolak, armed with the new knowledge and determined to put an end to Moroi's influence once and for all. The villagers were wary but willing to help. They had experienced a brief reprieve, but strange occurrences had started up again. Unexplained deaths, nightmares, and sightings of shadowy figures. Maria welcomed us back with a mixture of hope and resignation. "We feared this might happen," she said. "The curse was only part of the darkness that haunts this village." Using the instructions from Daemonium Carpathia, we prepared for the final ritual. This time it required not only a descendant of Alara's lineage, but also specific herbs, sacred symbols, and a consecrated location, an ancient altar deep in the forest. Anka, the descendant, was hesitant but resolute. "If this is what it takes to save my ancestors' home, I will do it," she said. The night of the ritual was tense, the forest alive with unnatural sounds and flickering shadows. We reached the ancient altar, its stone surface worn with age and inscribed with runes. Anka stood at the center, clutching the silver dagger, while James and I positioned the herbs and symbols as described. As Anka began to chant the incantation, the air grew colder, and a palpable sense of dread enveloped us. The growling returned, louder and more menacing, but we held our ground. Dark shapes moved at the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing with malevolence. The shadows coalesced into a figure, Moroi, a towering, grotesque entity with twisted features and burning eyes. It spoke in a guttural, otherworldly voice, mocking us and promising eternal suffering. Alara's curse was just the beginning. It hissed, "You cannot banish me. I am eternal. Anka continued the incantation, her voice growing stronger despite the entity's threats. The symbols around us began to glow, and the herbs ignited with an otherworldly fire. Moroi howled in fury, lunging towards us, but an invisible barrier held it back. With a final piercing cry, Anka drove the silver dagger into the altar. The ground shook, and a blinding light enveloped the clearing. Moroi's screams filled the air, then faded into silence. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a serene stillness. It was over. Moroi was gone. The villagers of Varkolak emerged from their homes, their faces lit with cautious hope. Maria embraced us, tears streaming down her face. "You have saved us," she whispered. "The darkness is finally gone." We stayed in the village for a few days, helping the villagers rebuild and celebrating their newfound freedom. When it was time to leave, Maria pressed the manuscript into my hands. "Take this," she said. "It is a part of our history, but it belongs with you now. You have earned it." As we drove away from Varkolak, I looked back one last time. The village, bathed in the light of a new dawn, seemed at peace. The manuscript lay on the seat beside me, a reminder of the journey we had undertaken and the darkness we had overcome. James glanced over at me, a smile playing on his lips. "So, what's next? Any more cursed manuscripts you want to track down?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Maybe, but for now, I think I'll stick to something a little less dangerous." As we headed home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The curse of Varkolak was broken, and the darkness had been banished. But the stories, the legends, they would live on, a testament to the power of belief and the resilience of the human spirit. And perhaps one day they would inspire others to face their own shadows and find the light within. Also, in the end, just don't forget, it wasn't just a puppy, so you better click that subscribe button